Thank you for.
Okay, thank you. Now we will move forward with the roll call. Our Secretary Kathleen McSweeney will now take our roll. Kathleen, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Delegates Davis is here. First Vice President Tia Alfred is here.
Present.
Secretary McSweeney is here. Treasurer Karen Nightingale.
Here.
Assistant Treasurer Adriana Spain. I believe she's excused tonight. At-large member Laura Saul Edwards. I believe she is also excused tonight. At-large member Whitney Kernoodle. Whitney Kernoodle. At-large member Kellen Macbeth. Kellen Macbeth. At-large member James Younger.
Present.
Communications Chair Leah Matterall.
Present.
Education Chair Tia Alfred.
Present.
Still here.
Yes.
Legal Redress Chair Amy Stitzel.
Present.
Political Action Chair Jean Marie Pena.
Present.
And Scholarship Committee Chair Whitney Kernoodle. And that concludes the roll.
Thank you, Kathleen. Next, we will hear the reading of the minutes from our last meeting. Kathleen, please proceed.
Thank you. So there are two sets of minutes because last month I had an issue pulling up the file. So these I'll read both sets of minutes. The first one is dated March 24th at 7 p.m. There was a call to order in the opening prayer by Reverend Delegates Davis, NAACP Arlington Branch President. She called the meeting to order and greeted the participants and led us in a prayer. The Secretary took the roll call. Reverend Davis displayed the agenda. We had a motion to suspend the rules because it's a standard agenda that the NAAC presides over for branches to follow. And for that meeting, we highlighted speakers who were addressing the topic, Her Story, Influential Women of Virginia, which was a special topic for the evening. The Secretary made a motion to suspend the rules, and the motion was seconded by Mr. Macbeth, and the motion passed unanimously. We had a moment of, in memory of Deaconess Rosa Dunkley, who passed, she was our first vice president, who passed on March 5th. Reverend Davis offered a moving tribute to Miss Rosa's life of service, and members weighed in to express how much Miss Rosa will be missed. The treasurer reviewed the financial report. Ms. Saul Edwards moved that the treasurer's report be accepted. Ms. Kernoodle seconded the motion, and the motion passed unanimously. Housing provided an update on the committee. The Housing Committee provided an update, reminding us that the Fair Housing Conference would be held on May 3rd from 11 to 3. Political Action provided an update. They are focusing with affordable housing communities, and they were preparing a letter concerning the removal of Black, Latino, and women's service and history at Arlington National Cemetery. Legal Redress provided an update, and the committee is planning a conference on poverty crimes. Communications provided an update. There was a March 26th transportation feedback for community planners. She encouraged people to attend. There was an introduction of the elected leaders for that evening. Senator Barbara Favola and Commonwealth Attorney Parissa Jangani-Tafti were present. And then we had the special program, Her Story, Influential Women of Virginia. It was a very impactful conversation. The next general membership meeting was set for April 28th, and President Davis closed the meeting with a prayer, and thanks to all for their tremendous support and participation. We adjourned at 9:06. I'll turn it back to you for a motion.
Thank you. Are there any corrections? If none, then I would like to move for a motion. Anyone from the executive board? Okay.
Hi, I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second motion.
Okay, so all in favor, please say aye. And this is for March only. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. The minutes are accepted for March 2025. And now Kathleen, please provide April.
Thank you. For the April 25th, 2025 general membership meeting, there was a call to order an opening prayer by Reverend Davis, President Davis. She called the meeting to order and led the Arlington branch in an opening prayer. The secretary took the roll call. The treasurer provided the financial report. There was a motion by Ms. Saul Edwards to move that the treasurer's report be accepted. Ms. Alford and Mr. Younger both seconded the motion, and the motion passed unanimously. We had several committee reports. Political Action Chair Jen Marie Benya indicated that the PAC is very busy planning the candidate forum, which we're actually having tonight. And the county board, it is for the county board and the first district house delegate candidates. The legal redress chair, Amy Stitzel, reported that the committee assists community members who report issues with discrimination on the job and in the community. And she reminded everyone of the May 3rd expungement clinic, which was being hosted by Arlington Presbyterian Church and organized by the Commonwealth Attorney's Office in collaboration with the Clerk of the Court and the Sheriff's Office. The Scholarship Committee, Treasurer Karen Nightingale, presented on behalf of the committee, and she reported that the NAACP Arlington branch had dispersed second semester scholarships to the universities where our scholarship recipients had been attending, and so we are caught up for this academic year. Education Committee Chair Tia Alford reported that the committee continues to work with APS to promote increased safety, communication, and accountability. The community responds to family, staff, and community reports and has identified a need to increase support for Black teachers and staff. The Freedom Fund Banquet, Chair Karen Nightingale asked everyone to mark their calendars for the next Freedom Fund Banquet, which will be held on October 4th, 2025. We are returning to the Arlington campus of George Mason University for the event. The committee is excited and is working to improve last year's highly successful event, and we'll be gathering nominations and selecting awardees a bit earlier this year than we did last. The Housing Committee, President Davis reported on behalf of the committee that the upcoming Fair Housing Conference is being held on May 3rd at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington and encouraged everyone to attend. President Davis also noted that we are always looking for people to serve on committees and do the good work of the branch. She encourages anyone who is interested in serving to reach out by sending an email to our branch address. The third item was the special program, which was the School Board Candidates Forum. The president introduced Education Chair Tia Alfred, who was the moderator for the Candidates Forum. And Ms. Alfred introduced the two school board candidates, thanked them for joining the forum, and directed a series of questions to both candidates to address. The topics were wide-ranging and the conversation informative, with questions focusing on issues impacting equity, achievement, safety, and trust. At the end of approximately 90 minutes, President Davis thanked the two candidates for their participation and Ms. Alfred for her moderation that evening. President Davis reminded attendees that the next general membership meeting is being held on May 27th, and the meeting will feature the County Board and Virginia House delegate contenders running in the upcoming June primary. President Davis closed the meeting with a prayer, and the meeting was adjourned at 9:01 p.m. That's it for the minute. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes as read? If there are no corrections, I'd like to have a motion to accept the minutes as presented from our executive board, please.
I move to accept the minutes. Thanks, Kathleen.
Seconded.
Thank you. Properly moved and seconded. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries and the minutes for April 2025 are accepted. Thank you. And now we will now hear the financial report from our treasurer, Karen Nightingale. Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Prior to me speaking, Kathleen can bring up the report. And Kathleen, there are people in the waiting room. So if you want to let those people in, I can wait a second.
Okay, they should be joining now. And
Okay.
are you seeing the report?
Yes,
It's
yes,
large enough.
it is. Yes. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. This report is for our March financial report. Excuse me, April financial report. I've gone back a month. April financial report 2025. Operations, we have three, as we've spoken before, we have three different counts. Our first operations is we started with a beginning balance of $10,780. We received deposit and transfers in of $6,155.30. There was one withdrawal of multiple withdrawals of $729.36, with the ending balance of $16,205.94. Our housing conference payment of $3,000 will be reflected in our May report, but that came out of our additional will be transferred from our reserve funds. Our reserve funds beginning balance is $8,000, and our ending balance currently is $8,000. Our scholarship beginning balance is $1,835, $352.84. Withdrawals were $15,720.00, giving us a balance of $169,632.00. Out of that particular scholarship moment, we paid our scholarship, the balance of scholarships to Northwestern for one student, George Mason University for our second student, and UVA for our third student. The other funding that came out of $720 was for the chef for the housing conference, which actually money will be reimbursed back to our operating funds. That gave us a balance again of $169,632.04. Can you move over to give a few details on this? Thank you so much. So we had donation from VHDA was $5,000, and we had our PayPal donations that came in. Those are recurring payments that come in. People donate to the branch. It was $1,155.30, giving us a total of $6,155.30 as incoming revenue. Our expenditures were much more repeatable expenditures, except for we had additional things. So communication was $230.40, which is a renewal fee. Our GoDaddy $65.96 monthly, Microsoft $138 monthly. MailChimp, which is our distribution of email, is $100, and we had to get liability and event insurance, $195.00 for all events that we currently have under the branch, which gave us a total of expenditures of $729.36. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, I turn it back over to our first VP. Thank you.
Thank you for the financial report. If there are no questions, may I have a motion to accept the financial report as presented? Anyone?
I'll move that we accept the financial report as presented.
Seconded.
Seconded. Thank you. So now that it's been moved and properly seconded, I would like to ask all in favor to say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries and the financial report is accepted. Now, Treasurer, did you have another one you wanted to present, or that was April's, you said?
So that was April. Yes, I just
Oh, okay, that was
spoke and said, yeah, that was April.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you. So now we'll hear brief updates from two of our committees, the Housing Committee and the Scholarship Committee. Let's begin with the report from the Housing Committee. Is he on? Let me see. I don't think he's on. So actually, we'll move on to the scholarship committee. Is she on? Because they were both scheduled to speak. I don't see them. Okay, we won't have our committee reports. I hope our PAC committee chair is ready because we're going to start a few minutes early. And now it's my pleasure to turn the meeting over to our very capable Jan Marie Pena. She is our current chair for PAC, and she will moderate tonight's political forum. Let's welcome Jan Marie.
Madam First VP. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the NAACP Arlington branch and our Political Action Committee, I'd like to welcome you to our candidate forum for the June 17th Democratic primary election. So my name is Jan Marie Pena. I'm the chair of our Political Action Committee, and I'm excited to get us started tonight. So the programs like the forum we have tonight are really vital to our civic engagement. So we really hope to have an informative conversation with the candidates that will allow you to leave the program engaged, informed, and better prepared to vote. As a reminder, the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization. We welcome people of all political parties, and we don't make any endorsements. But every election is important. And the Democratic primary for the county board and the House of Delegates first districts are the only competitive primaries that we have for local races this spring. So it's really important that we hold a forum for this election. But we do want to, emphasize that we're not advocating for any political party or candidate today. This program is really about civic engagement and education. So in the chat, I'm going to drop a link now that will direct you to more information on the upcoming primary election. This link will include information on the candidates who are running for each office, sample ballots, and also information on how to vote. So I'm going to put that in the chat now. But for tonight's program, we invited all candidates who are running in the upcoming primary election for the county board and the House of Delegates first district seats to join. So just describe the format. So we'll start with the discussion with our county board candidates, and then we'll follow that with the discussion with our House of Delegates candidates. During each discussion, we'll ask a series of questions that are important to the work that we're doing in our branch, and we'll rotate who answers first. And the chat will be disabled during the forum, but you can share any questions that you have directly with the hosts. So we will, with that, we'll move to start our discussion with the county board candidates. So if we could please spotlight Mr. James DeVita and Mr. Takis Karantonis. Thank you so much. Perfect. So, like I mentioned, all of the candidates who are running in the primary election for the Arlington County Board race were invited to participate, and we have each of the candidates joining us tonight, who are Mr. James Avita and Mr. Takis Karantonis. So for this discussion, we'll give each candidate 2 minutes for an opening statement. We'll also give each candidate for issue-specific questions that we ask. In between, we'll give either 30 seconds or a minute and a half, depending on the type of question that it is. And then we'll give 2 minutes for a closing statement. And like I mentioned earlier, we'll rotate who enters first. And if the candidate goes over time, I'm just going to jump in and let you know. So before we get into opening statements, though, I just wanted to quickly ask each candidate if you're a member of the NAACP. So I'll start in alphabetical order by candidate's last name. So I'll start with Mr. DeVita.
Yes, I am. Yep.
Thank you. Perfect. So now we'll give each candidate 2 minutes for opening statements. So during your statement, please highlight what your top priorities would be for your term in office and how these priorities would affect Black and other community members of color in Arlington. And we'll go in the same order, starting with Mr. DeVita.
I want to thank you for inviting me here today. I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself and my campaign positions. I'm a happily married man and a proud parent of 2 wonderful daughters who both graduated from Wakefield High School. I'm also a longtime resident of Arlington County. I've lived here since 1993. Professionally, I've worked as a trial lawyer for the DC Attorney General's office, and I've also worked for the environmental section of the U.S. Department of Justice. As a civil rights lawyer, I represented 7 Black Lives Matter protesters, the case I took all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I'm also a member of the Arlington NAACP. I think this election offers a rather stark choice between 2 competing philosophies. On the one hand, you have my opponent who believes in overdevelopment, who consistently sides with real estate developers, while I stand for less development and for preserving the quality of life that makes Arlington a great place to live. The primary example of this is, of course, the missing middle. When this zoning change was first announced, the county board claimed that if they allowed real estate developers to put 6-unit condo buildings in single-family neighborhoods, that real estate prices would somehow come down. But this is not proven to be true. The prices for the new units are well in excess of $1 million. What was even more alarming than passing the missing middle was the procedure the county board used to enact it. And what's become an alarming trend, the county board rushed this legislation through despite vigorous opposition from the people who are actually living in the single-family neighborhoods who just don't want it. And the reason that people living in the affected neighborhoods don't want the missing middle is because it's going to increase traffic, make parking impossible, overwhelm our sewer and stormwater systems, take out too many trees, overcrowd our local schools, and irrevocably change the character of our neighborhoods. And this practice of not listening to people who actually live in Arlington's neighborhoods has been repeated over and over again by the current county board. The River House development in Crystal City, the Melwood House development in Aurora Hills, the Clarendon Presbyterian Church development in Lion Village, and the Hotel Pentagon project in Green Valley are all examples of situations in which the county
Mr.
board,
DeVita,
yeah,
that is 2 minutes. And I did want to point out that your camera is blocked. So the audience is having a hard time seeing you, but that is 2 minutes. So I'll pass it to Mr. Carantonis now.
Thank you, Ms. Peña. NAACP, thank you for having us tonight. I couldn't agree more with the statement that every election matters. No matter how competitive or not competitive, every election at this moment matters. I feel that these are extremely challenging times. Everybody feels that. And as it happens in our nation, these times are more challenging for those who are most vulnerable. Those who have had to cross and march through the Pettus bridges again and again and again and again. So key priorities, since you asked for this opening statement, economic and fiscal resilience in this time of enormous turmoil for the entire nation. We literally don't know what's coming to us tomorrow. We need to be a resilient community first and foremost, because those who are the most vulnerable need to be protected the most. The second thing for me is addressing the colossal problem of housing affordability, having all instruments that we have in the drawer. And since I believe that most members of the NAACP know, if the housing unaffordability is a systemic problem, the answer to that has to be a systemic answer. And throughout my tenure, I've tried to address that this way with systemic changes and reforms. For me, then, youth and mental health, especially for those who are suffering the most right now, safe streets and transit, modernizing our government, and climate resiliency, which is part of a resilient economy and a future that we need to be able to give to our county and to the residents, all the residents of our county, with emphasis on all. Thank you. I think I'm already over the 2 minutes, so we can proceed with conversation.
Thank you so much. So the first question is on economic security. So people of color are most burdened by poverty and food insecurity in Arlington. Congress is currently considering a budget that could substantially cut critical assistance like Medicaid and SNAP for many families in our community. What policies will you support to protect community members who are already financially insecure from falling deeper into hardship? So we'll start with you, Mr. Carantonis.
Well, how long is the answer going to be? A minute, 2 minutes?
I'm sorry, you get a minute and a half.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, our biggest priority right now is to strengthen our social safety net. That means that any means we have to put up to support those who are who are going to be losing and are already losing their jobs, their social services. Make no mistake, it's not only the budget that is in front of the Senate right now. This is already happening since the administration is refusing to actually pay or to honor the programs that are already in place. So we did an enormous shift of means in favor of those who need it the most. We first pierced through $300 million invested in our Department of Human Services. This says a lot. We support housing, we support rent, we support mental health and physical physical health for those who need it right now. We put the money where our values and our mouth is. However, make absolutely no mistake, what we have in front of us are even tougher choices and even greater need. Therefore, it is extremely important that you demand from your leaders to advocate for those who are most in need in the Commonwealth, at the General Assembly and beyond. We need the entire political class of Arlington to be at the front of the fight. I committed to do that. I was never a good weather Democrat. I was always a tough weather Democrat since I got elected during the pandemic, and so I will continue.
Thank you so much. Mr. DeVita, the same question. And again, I just want to point out that you have a cover on your webcam, I believe, so we're having a hard time seeing you, but you have a minute and a half as well.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about the webcam. Basically, my point of view is just we simply can't let people be hungry. It would be my top priority if the federal government is not going to fully fund these programs. I would commit the county to making up whatever differences there are. It's just basic, the government has to take care of people if they can't take care of themselves. And I certainly would commit the county government to making sure that everybody in Arlington has enough to eat.
Thank you. So the next question is around health. So the Destination 2027 report highlights that there is a 10-year difference in life expectancy depending on who you are and where you live in Arlington. People of color, low-income community members, and other underserved communities are more likely to experience poorer health outcomes. If elected, what actions would you take to ensure that the goals of the Destination 2027 report become a reality? So for this question, you'll have a minute and a half, and I'll start with Mr. DeVita.
Yeah, once again, health is something that we just simply can't ignore. And once again, if there are federal cuts, I would commit the county government to making those up. It would seem to me that we need to provide clinics, we need to provide access to healthcare. I would commit the county government to doing whatever it needs to do to make sure that people are fully cared for.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis.
So this is one of the most depressing statistics that we have. Something that really shows that the gap between those who have and those who have far less is very difficult to bridge. It is unacceptable that there is a zip code in Arlington that has a 10-year, a decade of life, less life expectancy than that the next one, that literally 5 minutes from here, from where I live. So yes, there are systemic responses to that. Number one, we need to double down on our effort to solve housing. Housing is a very important social determinant of health. Education is a very important social determinant of health. Employment is a very stable, gainful employment is a very important social determinant of health. Everything that we do needs to be seen through the equity lens. If we don't, then we will fail to address the challenge. There is a reason why people die earlier than their more wealthy fellow Arlingtonians who live just 2 blocks away. And the reason is poverty. The reason is employment precariousness. The reason is not to be able to sustain stable housing. The reason is not to be able to support the youth. The reason is not to have enough services for mental health and physical health. We are a wealthy community. It should be absolutely unacceptable that we continue to have these differences, and nobody can tell me
Thank you,
that
Mr.
we cannot do
Carantonis.
better.
Thank you so much. So the next question is around housing. So homelessness continues to be on the rise in Arlington. While our region saw a slight decrease in homelessness over the last year, the county was one of 4 local jurisdictions to experience an increase. What policies would you champion to ensure all community members in Arlington have a safe, permanent, and stable home? So we'll start with you, Mr. Carantonis, and this will be a minute and a half.
Thank you. There is one answer to homelessness, and this is rapid rehousing, right? This is the technical policy that we know. Right now, our shelters are absolutely full. Our hotels, the hoteling capacities that were are absolutely full. Even with relatively low homelessness rate, but you are absolutely right, increasing 12% for year over year in the point in time count last January. We need to refocus on housing for those who earn less than 50% AMI on 40% AMI. One of the biggest problems that we have right now is that the average, because the top 2/3 of our society are making more money, especially during the pandemic. The AMI, the area median income, has gone up. So a lot of people are left behind effectively. They don't qualify for a lot of services that should be available to them. So this needs a policy response both in the region. I'm working in the region to try to have a concentrated response to homelessness, and here in Arlington specifically with making sure that those who earn less than 30% and 40% AMI, those who work at McDonald's, those who work in construction, those who have precarious work, women who are supporting their families as well, that these people receive the focus of the human services that we provide through the Department of Human Services.
Thank you so
The
much.
board member will be to shift the budget towards them.
Thank you. So Mr. DeVita, same question.
I think there's several things that need to be considered. The first one is just physical space. If the shelters are at capacity, as Mr. Carantonis says, then we have to build more shelters. That's the first thing I would commit to. And then I think the other problem that you have is convincing homeless people to go into the shelters. Sometimes that's not difficult. Sometimes they feel the shelters are dangerous and they don't want to go in. I think Arlington County only has one person, as far as I know, who's on the payroll, who actually goes out to talk to homeless people and try to convince them to take on services. I certainly would want to have more people doing that. And I think the other issue with the homeless, it might be mental illness. I think there are a lot of people on the street simply because they just can't cope. They either suffer from mental illness or drug or alcohol use. We need to get those people services. We need to get them treatment. And hopefully we will not only be able to shelter them, but move them back into being productive members of society.
Ms. Peña, there is not only one person, but there is a host of people who are caring about homeless, and we introduced mobile services with vans, 2 vans right now. The mobile units, they are fully equipped to address mental health on our streets. Yet the problem is really tough, and the money is not always available.
I talked to the one person that's doing it, and he said he was the only one.
I'm sorry, but this is really not accurate.
All right, thank you all so much. So moving on to the next question, it's on political action. This is going to be just a quick yes or no question, so we'll give you 30 seconds to answer. So Arlington's current form of government was established in 1930. It is well documented that the county changed its form of government to weaken the political power of Black voters. In the nearly 100 years that have followed since 1930, only 5 people of color have been elected to the Arlington County Board. If elected, would you support efforts at the state level to give Arlington the authority to restructure its current form of government? And I just want to note that the county board has opposed this measure in recent years. So we'll actually go in the same order, starting with Mr. Carantonis. And again, this is 30 seconds.
I will support a local effort first to have a comprehensive conversation about that and a blue ribbon committee that will look at all the aspects of government reform. I am not opposed to all aspects of the proposed state legislation. It's enabling registration at this moment. So this is not actually prescribing a type of government for Arlington, but it's opening possibilities for Arlington to look at this. The critical point here is to involve as many of the Arlington constituencies as possible. This is for me an absolute priority.
Thank you, Mr. DeVito.
Yeah, Delegate Patrick Hope actually has a plan to expand the county board, and it provides for representation by district. And I think that's a good plan. I think people in different parts of Arlington have different concerns. For example, the people in South Arlington and Green Valley may have different concerns than the people who live in Crystal City or North Arlington. So I think it's a good plan. I would support that. And I think bottom line, that may very well lead to increased participation by people who haven't had a chance to participate before.
Thank you so much. So the next question is on criminal justice. The next set of questions, actually. So we're going to start with a quick yes or no again. So in the last few years, 4 people experiencing homelessness, 3 of whom were charged with trespassing and 1 held for failing to pay due child support, died in the jail. 3 were people of color. The Arlington County Sheriff's Office and Police Department have discretion to release the records of their death investigations to the public, but have refused. Do you support urging the release of the records to the public? And if so, how would you achieve this? So we'll start with Mr. DeVito.
Yeah, certainly. I can't imagine a government wanting to hold on to those records. If there is some issue about the way the prisoners were treated in the jail, certainly that information needs to be made public. And if there were things that weren't done properly, knowing about it's the only possible way to correct it. So I certainly would support the release of that information.
Thank you. Mr. Carantonis.
As far as I know, at least in the Beckton case, there has been litigation, and there has been a settlement by the previous sheriff, or the sheriff's department under the leadership of the previous sheriff. For me, transparency is absolutely critical, always. And this begins with the action of the sheriff. Might be a independent constitutional officer, so this is not. The county board doesn't have full jurisdiction there, but what the county board has is the power of the purse to enable drastic adjustments in how we treat and what means and what is the level and quality of medical attention. Right now, if you have seen, and we worked together with many members of the NAACP on this.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carantonis.
To dramatically improve the medical attention of the jail.
Thank you so much. So now the next question is on criminal justice as well, and we're going to go in the same order. So Arlington County government has not publicly studied or urged any action on why these individuals were initially arrested instead of diverted to shelter or crisis care, or held and continue to be held instead of released. So we've talked to DHS and the police about the option to drop off individuals arrested for trespassing at one of 2 shelters 24/7 instead of completing an arrest. So do you support a requirement of the police to stop at a shelter for drop off prior to completing an arrest at the jail? And if so, how would you enforce this practice? So we'll start with Mr. DeVito again.
I think.
And this is a minute and a half, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to quibble, but I think I need to know a little bit more about the facts of each case. Certainly, if somebody is homeless and they're in a place like sort of a private section of Arlington, like a store or a restaurant, and they're there and they simply have no choice. They have no other place to go. I think that's one thing. On the other hand, if the person was there causing disturbance in some fashion, I need to know what happened and how it affected the either the business or the residents or whoever else was being affected. On the other hand, if they just if they're just there because they had no other place to go, I think dropping them off at a shelter is probably a more expeditious solution to the problem than trying to prosecute somebody like that. So I think it would depend on the facts of each case for me.
Thanks, Mr. Carantonis.
So diversion is still a firm goal that needs and leads good policies and policies that are focused on accomplishing the goal of not, processing as criminals people for trespassing, etc. Sometimes the law is not on our side. It doesn't allow us to deal differently with some of the cases. But in the last, as long as I've been in office, we have made a lot of progress in diverting people who should have no business to be in a jail. Actually, it is absolutely detrimental for them to be processed like criminals, because they're not. Mental health attention is for me an absolute priority. The Crisis Intervention Center, the most units, the investment in the case workers in the jail, who are social workers, etc. All this is a system that right now offers a far better outcome for these in these arrests. Are we done? Of course, we're not done. We have a lot of way to go still, but I think that we are in the right trajectory already. This also applies to the restorative justice. To me,
I'm sorry, Mr. Cantonis, that is a minute and a half,
sure.
but thank you. So the next question's on immigration. So aggressive immigration enforcement in Arlington and throughout the country has our immigrant community members living in a state of fear. The county board recently took an important step to address distrust in immigrant communities by limiting ACPJ interactions with ICE. What other actions would you pursue to continue to rebuild trust and a sense of safety and belonging among our immigrant community members? So for this question, you'll have a minute and a half, and I'll start with Mr. Karantonis.
Just for the record, the county board hasn't taken actions on building trust with regards to immigration enforcement just recently. It started already in 2021, so it is not a new thing. It is what is new is not you call it aggressive enforcement, and so I call it unjust, cruel, and absolutely unacceptable enforcement without due process and everything that our Constitution stands for. So the next, we cannot trust the federal government right now to follow the law. This is a new situation in America, and I don't know where it will get us. The immigrant community, and I'm an immigrant myself, lives in fear. You're absolutely right. We need to make sure that all government services are available to everybody, absolutely regardless of their immigration status. That everybody knows that they have access to all the services that they used to have access, and every other Arlingtonian has access to, without anybody under any circumstance checks their immigration status, except if federal law requires that. But for the most part, we need to keep up the welcoming and safe space community that we are. We cannot be a sanctuary city, but we can be a safe community, a respectful community to all our immigrants. And
Thank
then
you.
it is
Mr.
also the
Cantonis.
education of our public servants to follow this policy.
Mr. DeVito.
I'm an immigration lawyer. I actually defend immigrants in deportation proceedings. And in the course of doing so, I've become familiar with the reasons why a lot of these people leave their native countries. And it's not because they want to make an extra 50 cents an hour. In a lot of situations, you have people who are living in families where a gang will come around and try to force a young male child to join a gang, with the threat being that if they don't join, they'll kill the entire family. Then you also have people who simply don't have enough to eat and are immigrating because they need to survive. So I have a lot of sympathy for people in the immigrant community. And the real problem with the Trump administration is they just don't follow the law. There are procedures that have to be followed in an immigration court, and they're just snatching people off the street. So to the extent that the Trump administration continues to do that, I would not have the Arlington County government cooperate with ICE in any way.
Thank you. So this next question's on housing. And so it is a yes or no, so it's 30 seconds each. So we'll actually go in the same order as we did for this question. So in the past, Arlington has been prevented from using its own fiber network to provide internet services to affordable housing residences, even during the pandemic. The only way to provide such services is to create an entity called a broadband authority. Do you support the formation of a broadband authority in Arlington to be used in targeted circumstances to achieve digital equity? So we'll start with Mr. Karantonis.
I absolutely support the prospect of a broadband authority. I don't think that the current commercial system that we have really serves the economically weakest households, and we saw that during the pandemic when we had to step up the provision of broadband services to those who couldn't afford them. It is not it's not a secret that almost 40 to 50% of the lower income households don't have contracts. They only have mobile phone contracts. So the possibility of a broadband authority is something that that I support. And I think that we have excellent possibilities to roll it out in controlled environment, like, for example, the Barcroft Apartments or in other places, and grow from there.
Thank you. Mr. DeVito?
Absolutely. I think a good analogy is students in school. I mean, if the students in school don't have access to computers or the internet, you've got to provide it. And I feel the same way about the broadband. You know, if people living in these apartments don't really have access to the internet, I can't imagine being a person in the modern world without access. So I certainly would support that.
Thank you so much. So now we're just going to move to closing. So we'll now give each candidate 2 minutes for closing statements. So during your statement, please highlight what specific actions you will commit to that will make Arlington more equitable for all people of color. So we'll start with Mr. DeVito.
Well, I think in terms of making Arlington more equitable for people of color, I think one thing I'd like to point out is that the development policies that the county board is pursuing affect all people, and particularly people in Green Valley, people of color in Green Valley. For example, you have the Hotel Pentagon project. I think it's a good example of how overdevelopment can hurt people in that community. You had the pastor of the Lomax Church basically saying, you know, we want more affordable housing. We want more units that are affordable for our, you know, the people that live in our community. The county board, out of 500 units, gave them 9. So this overdevelopment I'm talking about affects everybody. But I think the real problem is I think it leads to gentrification. If developers, you know, pursuing the missing middle projects are looking for cheap real estate, they're going to come to South Arlington, where I live, and that's going to lead to gentrification. So if you want to make sure that doesn't happen, and you want to preserve the quality of life that we have here in Arlington, I would ask you to vote for me. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis.
So it's always an honor to be with you and to have this debate and this conversation. And there is always something that I take away with me, and is the question, how do we see everything that we do through the equity lens? We always can do more and we can do better, but make no mistake, Arlington has made enormous progress. We are the leading jurisdiction in Virginia, in the state, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, on achieving almost 10% of our total rental stock in affordable housing. We are the only one that has housing grants, that does eviction prevention, that is actually helping, where our food insecurity is actually addressed, where mental health challenges are addressed, criminal justice challenges are actually addressed. Think of what we did after the summer of 2020, what we celebrated, you know, 5-year anniversary after the murder of George Floyd. We have a community oversight board. We have community policing. We do things. We have been investing in our community, and this is what I am here to ask to vote for, to continue with. Steady, proactive, community-powered leadership in the crisis. I was elected during the COVID era, before we had the vaccine. I jumped into this out of out of my community to protect everybody in our community. And for me, stability and resilience, making sure that every day we take into account who is impacted and how we can improve that. And we answer always the four questions. You know, who is burdened, who is benefiting, and you know, we meet the moment with the challenge that an enormous backlash, political backlash, is throwing at us. It is extremely important, and I call you again to go vote. This is absolutely critical. Never allow somebody to say, "Oh, elections don't matter anymore.
Thank you.
Vibes matter." That shouldn't be. Please go vote. And if you
Thank
can vote for me, even better. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Karantonis and Mr. DeVita, for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we can move on now to our forum with the House of Delegates First District candidates. So for that, if we could please spotlight Mr. Sean Epstein, Delegate Patrick Cope, and Mr. Arjun Sirkant. We'll give a minute for everyone to be pulled up. And is Sean Epstein on?
I'm here.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. So all the candidates running in the Democratic primary for the House of Delegates First District were invited to participate. So joining us for our discussion tonight, we have all of the candidates for this race. So Mr. Sean Epstein, Delegate Patrick Hope, and Mr. Arjun Srikant. So for each discussion, similar to the last one, each candidate will have 2 minutes to give an opening statement, 30 seconds or 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer specific issue area questions, and 2 minutes for a closing statement. So again, we'll rotate the answers first, and I'll jump in when your time is up. So we'll start with the first question that we asked in the first discussion, and that is, if you could just please share if you're a member of the NAACP. So we'll go in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Mr. Epstein, then Delegate Hope, and Mr. Srikant.
I am not.
Thank you. Delegate Hope.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Mr. Srikant.
I am not.
All right, thank you so much. So now we'll give each candidate 2 minutes for opening statements. So during your statement, please highlight what your top priorities would be for your term in office and how these priorities would affect Black and other community members of color in Arlington. So we'll go in the same order, starting with Mr. Epstein.
Yeah, first off, cannot thank the NAACP enough for putting this together. I think your sustained impact and activism since 1909 is really a testament to the cause. I may be dating myself, but I was actually first introduced to the work you did and do by Justice Marshall when I visited him and Justice Brennan as part of a 7th grade trip from Florida up to DC. So have quite a bit of history and legacy there as well. You know, my campaign is an embodiment, as I have said many times, of my love for this community. You know, we've lived in both South Arlington and North Arlington for more than 20 years. We've got 3 kids currently in Arlington public schools. My wife's a former ER and pediatric oncology nurse turned healthcare attorney, only in DC. Could that happen, I think? And together we are active in myriad charitable organizations, religious, community, and mission-driven causes. And I've been a sports youth coach for basically as long as my kids could walk. Outside of politics, I'm an executive over at Palo Alto Networks, where I'm responsible for the business we do with partners like IBM, Deloitte, and Accenture. And frankly, the one thing I've learned in 30 years of business and in and around the technology sector is that if everything is a priority, nothing's a priority. So my 2 priorities, which I think lift up minority communities in and of themselves at an uber level, R1, the economy, where we want to continue to support and redeploy federal workers here in the community. We want to invest in our small and medium and minority-owned businesses. We want to bring the right new and diverse businesses back to Arlington, and we want to close the income gap between minority and non-minority communities across the state. The second is education, where we want to increase the overall dollars we spend on students, which helps everyone. We're spending about the same as Mississippi right now. And we want to invest in universal pre-K and aftercare, which actually helps close the achievement gap, whether you're 400% below the poverty level or 400% above the poverty level. We want to double down on mental and physical health resources,
Thanks,
and we want to
Mr.
cut red
Epstein.
tape. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Delegate Hope.
Hi, thank you, Jan Marie Pena, and thank you to Arlington Branch and AACP for sponsoring this forum, and to the gentlemen that are joining me here tonight. I also want to give a special shout out to Reverend Delisha Davis, who's the president of the Arlington, DC chapter as well. We've worked tremendously well together. Congratulations on your leadership. You've done such a great job since you've taken over. I do want to highlight some of the things that we've done together. I work very closely with the local chapter, but also the state chapter of NAACP as well. But just to name some of the few of the things you mentioned already in the first of the forum, for the last 2 years, we've worked together to update Arlington's county manager plan of government. We know that this is part of Jim Crow South as a tactic to use to disenfranchise people of color, to get them to stop from voting. We worked together last year on prevailing wage for the Arlington Career Center. While we are unsuccessful with that, the school board has voted to have future projects to include prevailing wage. And I'm very proud that we did that together. You mentioned the oversight of the deaths in jails. I passed an ombudsman bill for the Department of Corrections for prisons last year. I want to expand their powers to include jails so we can find out what's going on in our jails to make sure there's some accountability and transparency. The other thing that we've done together is to allow the Arlington County Board to hire the police auditor. It's crazy we have to get permission from the General Assembly to do that, but that bill was vetoed by Governor Youngkin, and I want to bring that bill back next year, and I hope that we can work together to do that, to get that put into law. And finally, I'd say that we work together on the creation of the Civilian Review Board to get Arlington to do it, and secondly, to have all law enforcement to have body-worn cameras. I think we have tremendous success in doing that. And so I'm here today to ask you for your continued support in this primary so that we can continue to work together to get things done. And thanks again for having this forum, and I look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Srikanth.
Hey everyone, I'd like to thank the NAACP Arlington branch for hosting this forum. My name is Arjun Srikanth, and I am running for the Virginia House of Delegates in District 1. I'm a software engineer, a musician, and a first-time homeowner living in Boston. And I'm running for office because Virginia is we're at a crossroads. The old ways of doing things simply aren't working. The cost of living is getting out of control, especially in our district. Arlington has become unaffordable for seniors, families, especially people of color, to live in the neighborhoods that they call home. And across the river in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump is attacking federal workers and destroying the foundations of our country. Instead of protecting vulnerable Virginians, Republicans in Richmond are helping him every step of the way. So, it's clear that our communities are in crisis, and we need a new generation of leadership to fight back. In our campaign, we are fighting for housing justice. Every day, young people, communities of color, and working class people in Arlington are getting priced out of their homes. We need to build if we're going to maintain a housing supply that can meet the diverse needs of our community. And we can do that by streamlining the convoluted barriers to construction that have kept housing artificially scarce and unaffordable. We are also fighting for home rule in Arlington. For too long, Arlingtonians and folks across our Commonwealth have had to approach the General Assembly hat in hand to deal with their neighborhood issues. Arlington should be able to set its own minimum wage and, hire an independent auditor, as well as deal with the structure of its county and city governments and quality of life issues like gas-powered leaf blowers and pesticides without having to send those bills and ask for permission from the General Assembly. I will fight to amend the Dillon Rule and bring Virginia's localities' powers in line with 40 out of 50 states. Finally, I'm also running to make sure that our Commonwealth and local governments are protecting vulnerable Virginians from the chaos of the federal government. As delegate, I will proactively propose legislation in our General Assembly to keep our communities resilient, This means fighting to protect reproductive care for all Virginians and providing resources for our immigrant communities so that they know their rights and have access to legal representation. Thank you once again, and I look forward to this policy discussion.
Thank you so much. So the first question we have is on housing. So you'll have a minute and a half for this question. So that is a key goal of of Arlington's affordable housing master plan is that by 2040, about 23,000 of the county's housing stock should be affordable to households with incomes at or below 60% of the area median income. As of last year, the county has fewer than 15,000 affordable homes, and rent increases threaten to further reduce the number of market rate affordable homes. What policies would you champion in the General Assembly to help the county meet its affordable housing goals? So we'll start with Delegate Hope.
Thank you for that. Look, I support making sure that Arlington, all localities have the proper authority to do what they need to do to increase their affordable housing stock. We need more affordable housing. We need more housing in all of the common. This is a big problem throughout the whole state. And I support maintaining those zoning requirements, allowing localities to exercise their rights for zoning. There are some things they have to come to us for permission. I do agree with Arjun about this. We have got to make sure that if the locality wants to implement policies, they should feel free to do so. I've supported a bill that would allow you to streamline the permitting process, to allow churches and other nonprofits to be able to build their affordable housing on top of their church. That bill was unfortunately watered down. The governor amended it, and we need to come back. We need to get a new governor, and we need to try to fix it and have it come back so that they have the full power, full authority to do that. We also need. I've been working with the county and the regulators to try to improve the accessory dwelling units, to get them to developers to encourage them, incentivize them to come in and build it and streamline that process so that it can be more doable to increase more housing. We need to work in that area as well too. I know legislation has come up in the past and has been defeated there as well too. We need to increase our affordable housing trust fund. We only have $300 million a year that we put into the trust fund. That's abysmal. That's less than 1%. We probably need to increase it up to $1 billion or even more. And so I want to work to make sure that we can improve that fund so that localities can get more funding streams for housing purposes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shrikant.
Thank you. Yes, affordable housing and making sure that we can increase our housing supply is a critical part of this platform. And as a first-time homeowner, I've actually dealt with the housing market recently, so I can speak to the kind of direness of the situation there. I would say that affordable dwelling units, legalizing them by right across our Commonwealth is a big priority. Faith in housing programs, allowing religious institutions is also a great one. I want to see us move to a digital portal system at the Commonwealth level, providing those resources for counties to move away from rigidly sequential paper and pencil processing systems that they're currently stuck with. I want to see us reform our proffer system so we can move towards a system of scheduled impact fees. And overall, it just takes way too long to permit here in our Commonwealth. And we could see that in the year 2024, just the city of Dallas issued more housing permits than the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're dealing with a systematic issue here. And frankly, one of those big issues is, unfortunately, due to a bill passed by Delegate Hope, House Bill 1395, a historic preservation bill that has now encumbered the building of 300 affordable units down in South Arlington, the Melwood project. And it will continue to until the year 2026, until the Historical Review Board issues its ruling there. So we need to get rid of these bills that are frankly stifling the production of affordable housing in our Commonwealth, and that's a good place to start.
Thank you, Mr. Epstein. You are on mute, sir.
Thanks. So what I said when I was on mute, which will sound like mute, which is that I pretty much agree with what both of these folks have said before. I'll add some things to it, right? Number one, it would be great to see the permitting office full of actual employees in Arlington County. And I have a feeling that may apply across the state. where from builders that I've spoken to, both on the commercial and the residential side, both low income, green housing, and super expensive, unaffordable, at least for me, housing. It's impossible to get anyone in the permitting office on the phone. You can't walk into the courthouse and actually see them any longer in Clarendon. And I have to imagine from what I've heard that's happening everywhere else. The problem, and I'll ask everybody, just go read Abundance by Ezra Klein. We could start there, right? We're no longer good at building things. Arjun's right. I mean, if you look at what Houston and Dallas and others have done as far as getting building done, they're the only parts of the country that are actually building well, like we used to do in the 50s. We do need to streamline permitting. We need to look at modular housing. Modular housing is one of the most affordable ways for us to actually put low-income housing into Arlington, into Petersburg, into Richmond, into you name it. Yet we don't go there. And one of the reasons we don't go there is because there's a natural tension between the labor unions, who don't see as much income or revenue or employment from actual modular housing projects. But we know that they are effective, efficient, and permitted properly. So I would like to see us do that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Epstein. So before we move on to the next question, I did want to give Delegate Hope 30 seconds, just since he was called out in response.
Thank you. Look, the bill that we passed, the law that we passed, signed by the Governor Youngkin, doesn't do what Arjun says it does. He got his story from Scott McCaffrey, who frankly has his own bias. We all know that. If you all attended the Fair Housing Conference sponsored by NAACP, the county government was there that said so much that this is not due to the holdup. So that should have been dispositive to the issue, but of course it's not. So I've talked to the Attorney General. They have land use attorneys that have looked at this. The law does not do that. If there's anything holding up the Melwood property, it has nothing to do with the bill and the law that we signed into law last year. That sounds like what you're describing, Arjun, is probably the most anti-developer law in the history of Virginia. And it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't exist. It's false narrative.
Thanks, Delegate Hope. And I'll give you 30 seconds as well, Mr. Srikanth.
Thank you so much. If we need Attorney General Jason Miyares to come in and clarify the text of the bill that you wrote, I'd say that's a failing of the bill. And I wouldn't. And if you have a problem with Arl Now's coverage, I would say take it up with them and not with me. I'm just reading the text of the bill as described. And if you can talk to the HARLB, they will tell you that the reason they are holding this up is because of the bill.
They're not the county. They're not the county, Arjun.
That's exactly what they said. So
they're not the county.
Take it up with them.
They're not the county.
All right, so we're going to move on. So next question is on education. So Black history is American history. Now with support from the federal government, the movement to undermine and whitewash Black history in the US only continues to grow stronger. What actions would you take to protect and strengthen the teaching of Black history in our schools? So we'll start with Mr. Srikanth. And that's a minute and a half.
Thank you. The teaching of Black history is so important. I was walking through Halls Hill neighborhood, and of course, there's still that scar, that wall that has divided the communities here in Arlington. And I'm glad they've kept it up as a reminder. And that's kind of the exact same philosophy that we need to have for our education system. We're not going to gloss over the dirty details of, frankly, Virginia, with its history of massive resistance, with its history of fighting for segregation for so long until the very end. We were the last holdouts, essentially. I totally oppose Governor Youngkin's attempts to politicize this issue, to remove the teaching of African-American history in our schools. And I'll tell you, as your delegate in the General Assembly, I will make sure that even the dark and sordid details of our history are taught in full so that we can never again repeat it.
Thank you, Mr. Epstein.
Do I get an extra 30 because of the banter? No, I'm just kidding. Look, I think we, number one, have to work on it at a teacher level. I think we also have to work on it at a curriculum level. I don't believe so, but I think it should be so that Black history ought to be an AP class, which it isn't at the high schools that I'm familiar with. And I think we ought to have that. I also think we need to incorporate more Black authors and more Black context within each of the different curriculum, whether it's who were the greatest Black physicists. I mean, we can incorporate Black history in ways, even if we're dealing with pressure from the federal government, And through whatever's left of the Department of Education, we can incorporate it through different disciplines, including Black thought leaders, and incorporating it through teachers who are familiar, and also incorporating it through making sure that it's part of a curriculum in Greater High School for AP credit.
Thank you. Delegate Hope.
Well, I think we've made considerable progress on this topic until Governor Youngkin was elected. And of course, he rode in on this notion of so-called critical race theory, which is a fallacy. It's not taught in our schools. He even had to be one of his first executive orders that he signed into law. And so I do support culturally diverse curriculum. In fact, I supported legislation by my colleague, David Reed and Senator Aaron Roush that put in that was vetoed by the governor. It was pushed by the Loudoun NAACP chapter as well to allow Black history to be allowed to be part of a graduate for history. I think Black history is it's part of Virginia history, and we need to be telling the entire history. We also need to let teachers teach. Teachers are scared, they're terrified to teach in schools. And I think once we get Governor Youngkin out of office and we get a governor that shares the values that we have, we can start pursuing these things legislatively and through the Board of Education as well too, to make absolutely certain that we can teach Black history, the whole history, in our Virginia schools. And we'll demand it as if we can take back the governor's mansion and maintain our majority in the House.
Thank you so much. So the next question's a yes or no question on voting rights. So for this one, you'll have 30 seconds. So the governor's ending of automatic restoration of rights disproportionately disenfranchises Black and Brown voters. This year, the General Assembly passed a resolution to amend Virginia's Constitution to automatically restore voting rights for citizens who have completed a felony conviction. The resolution must pass again next year for voters to consider and approve the constitutional amendment. If elected, will you support the resolution in next year's session to enshrine automatic restoration of rights in the state's constitution? So we'll go in the same order as the last question. So we'll start with Mr. Srikanth.
I will absolutely support that resolution. I think it is long overdue, and frankly, we have to support it. I think the process is it's passed this year. It has to once again pass next year in the General Assembly session, and then it goes to a referendum to the people of Virginia. So there's two pieces to this where, one, we have to make sure that we pass it in exactly the same form next year, which I pledge to do. And we have to campaign like hell to make sure that the people of Virginia understand it, and we'll vote yes on it in November of next year.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Arjun on both counts, right? We both have to, number one, I will support it. And number two, we're going to have to actually get out there and campaign and make sure people are supportive of it as well.
Thanks, Delegate Hope.
Yes, I support it. I supported it this year, and we'll pass it again next year. And I just want to be clear why we're doing this. When it comes to voting rights and the suppression of Black votes, it's the same reason why I feel so strongly about updating Arlington's voting manager plan of government, because the Black community is policed more, they're pulled over more, they're searched more, they're arrested more, they make worse plea deals, and they get longer prison sentences. And that was the whole reason why suppressing Black folks to put them in prison and not allowing them to vote after they got out of prison. That was the ultimate goal. And so we have to have an extra level of strict scrutiny when it comes to voting, because it disproportionately disenfranchises people of color, which was the design.
Thank you.
And that's why it has to be in our Constitution.
Thank you so much. So the next question is on economic security, and this is a question that we asked earlier to the county board candidates as well. So it's a minute and a half to respond. People of color are most burdened by poverty and food insecurity in Arlington. Congress is currently considering a budget that could substantially cut critical assistance like Medicaid and SNAP for many families in our community. What policies will you support to protect community members who are already financially insecure from falling deeper into hardship? So we'll start with Mr. Epstein.
Yeah, I mean, I think we absolutely have to provide food assistance, and we're going to have to try to do it on a variety of ways, in a variety of ways, right? One, we're going to have to try to fill the gap from a state level, which will be dollars that we'll have to invest in it. I think we also can lean on some of our corporate partners inside the communities, especially where there's the greatest need, in order to contribute their fair share to the community. And one of the things I'm all about is public-private partnerships. When you come into Arlington, for example, I expect that not only are your leaders going to be doing job training, I expect that your company has an obligation to support a local charitable cause and will fulfill X number of other requirements to actually help us lift up the community. So we'll have to work with them. And then we're going to have to work more with organizations like Arlington Food Assistance Program, who can provide more at a local level, and those, obviously, as we're thinking about this at a state level, those equivalents or analogs that exist across the state of Virginia.
Thank you, Delegate Holt.
I would answer this in sort of two ways, short term and long term. Short term, we have to go into special session and to create special funding to help people that are in crisis right now. And so it's going to have to be a special fund that supports nonprofits, supports our local governments as well too. Longer term, and I don't mean very long, I mean very short time, in like a year or so, we have to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We have to invest more in education. We have to invest more in housing. We have to invest more in job training. We have to protect our SWAM businesses as well and give them the assistance that they need and funding that they need to be successful businesses. The other area is not a big area, but it's one of importance to minority-owned businesses is cannabis retail, and to allow people of color to participate in the growing and the manufacturing, the retailing of cannabis as well too. And I need to mention healthcare, preventive care. I mean, this was one of the questions that you asked earlier about the life expectancy. Preventive care, protecting Medicaid, making sure that people have access to a provider of care can extend their life and support them. So it's all these different things that we've got to put together and act as a unit to help support our minorities populations.
Thanks. Mr. Srikant?
I think it's great to talk about a special session. I wish that we would have had all these ideas coming into the session, knowing what Donald Trump was going to do in January. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more proactive vision there. What I would have done, yes, we have to make sure that we are taking care of our federal workers and contractors, taking care of our local economy, giving people the emergency economic benefits that they are so dearly deserve right now. I mean, Northern Virginia has paid the tax bill for our entire Commonwealth for such a long time. And now we're seeing the tables turn where our biggest economic engine, our federal workers, are getting hurt. And not only that, it's adding insult to injury to, in this big, ugly bill, they call it, they're attempting to cut Medicaid, they're attempting to cut food stamps. So the Commonwealth is going to have to come up and actually make these people whole. And where we do that, we may have to reallocate funds, we may have to reprioritize, especially as it regards Medicaid. And but that's the kind of things that I would like to see. In the long term, we want to see more economic investment. And that, again, goes back to more dollars coming back to Northern Virginia. Right now, again, we pay so much of our tax bill. I want to see those dollars going to targeted investments that are going to go into research, that are going to go into software, that's going to go into hospitality. These are all areas that I see as big drivers for future economic growth here, so we can diversify our economy and be stronger over the next 3 years, because things are not just going to snap back.
Thank you so much. So the next question's on environment and climate justice. And this one's going to be 1.5 minutes as well. So climate change is causing extreme weather events such as heat waves and severe flooding to become more and more common in our region. What investments would you support to help our community address and respond to climate change? And how would you ensure that these investments equitably benefit communities of color who are most harmed by extreme conditions? So we'll start with Delegate Hope.
Well, I mean, I think we've set some really good criteria for the Clean Economy Act, and that was allowed for us to be carbon neutral by the year 2050. I think there's some effort to want to take another look at that. But I think there's some investments certainly we're going to continue to make in renewable energy. We've come a long way in trying to move ourselves away from fossil fuels, especially the coal-fired power plants. Coal now represents only about 2% of our entire use in Virginia. We've shut down a lot of those plants. Natural gas is probably the biggest right now. We have the biggest wind farm project in the entire country being built off Virginia Beach right now. It's about halfway through. It's a great effort that we've started many years ago. Things have slowed down quite a bit under Governor Youngkin. You know, he pulled us out of RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which was sort of a cap and trade for 9 states. This really helps with resiliency on the coastal lines and things like that. But we got to make these opportunities available to minority-owned businesses as well, investments in renewables, and making it more incentivizing to have the solar panels on your roof, lower costs for all homeowners as well. Data centers is also an issue that you have to talk about as well too. The state's probably going to have to get involved in oversight of that. Local government has authority to put these in. They're huge economic drivers for the local issue, but it's also a huge drain on our grid. It's also
Thank you.
cost. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Srikanth?
Yeah, thank you. So unfortunately, Virginia is not doing too great when it comes to clean energy. We are 38th out of 50 states. And clean energy, to be clear, is going to be the biggest weapon in our arsenal against climate change. It's the biggest thing that we can do to reduce emissions is to remove our dependency on fossil fuels. So right now we are 38th out of 50 states. Only about 8.8% of our domestic energy generation is coming from wind and solar. And it's simply a fact that we do not build nearly enough. And I like to see rooftop solar. I like to see solar on the roofs of our schools and our government buildings, but we need to be building solar and wind at scale. We need to be looking at the states across the country that have been doing particularly well. And this is not a partisan issue. You look at states like South Dakota, you look at states like Texas, and we've seen them do extraordinarily well. Now, how were they able to do that? They were able to incentivize it by actually allowing private investors, other people from across the country to come in and invest in allowing small farmers to lease out their land for these wind and solar projects. Right now, it is nearly impossible. And a lot of that is due to Dominion. So we're going to need somebody to go into Richmond and really fight that monopoly, because the monopoly it's holding us back. It's leading us to a point where we are totally dependent on grid connections from one company, which is not incentivized to actually make those grid connections. They want to control all the resources themselves. Why would they like to invite other people to come in and generate wind and solar? So we propose opening up our energy generation markets so that we can bring in that investment, build more wind and solar, and actually, as a serious point, transition us away from coal and natural gas.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we need to continue to do better at, we're really good at putting lots of protocols and processes into our permitting, but where we're not spending as much time is around racial equality. And are these projects being built and highways being built through, neighborhoods of folks who don't have voice for themselves, and are, it's destroying their environment. It's putting a highway behind their schools. It's really looking at them last in the process. And I think we need to try to move that racial equality screen up to the front of the process. And if we're going to get rid of certain processes, which I hope we do, that's one I think we need to prioritize. On the data center side, I think it's a valuable point that was brought up. I think it's in 2036, we have an expiring sales tax exemption for data centers. And just having spent a lot of time in that space, data center, folks are going to need to plan, which means in the next 4 years, they're going to need to understand if that exemption is going to stay in place or whether that exemption is going to be lifted, and in what way is it going to be lifted. But we do actually have a bit of a carrot and stick with those data centers. They can go down, they can go up, they can integrate solar. They can also lose that sales tax exemption, which, by the way, is huge to them. And so I think we need to look at it there. Lastly, I think public-private partnerships make the most sense, because when we are drawing on private money versus public money, we have a heck of a lot more, fewer hoops to jump through in order to get projects done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So the next question is on health. So this is a yes or no question. So the NAACP stands firm that access to comprehensive reproductive health services, including contraception, family planning, and safe abortion services, are a fundamental right. So similar to automatic restoration of rights, the General Assembly must pass a resolution again next year for voters to consider and approve the constitutional amendment to enshrine abortion rights in Virginia's Constitution. If elected, will you support this resolution in next year's session? So we'll start again with Delegate Hope, and this is 30 seconds.
Yes, and I helped write it, and I will plan to vote for it again.
Thank you. Mr. Srikanth?
I will absolutely vote for it. And I think we actually, as a General Assembly, need to go even further. And we need to pass an abortion shield bill that will protect Virginians who access abortion from extradition by other jurisdictions. Very similar to Senate Bill 743, a bill that Delegate Hope actually killed in his committee this past session, a bill that Senator Favola proposed. It had already passed the Senate. For some reason, it got over to Delegate Hope's desk and he killed it. So we want to make sure we pass that again this session, and I will make sure to do that.
Thank you. And we'll give you a chance to respond, Delegate Hope. But Mr. Epstein?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. I'm absolutely in favor of that being enshrined. I'm a legal, safe, rare guy. And when we think about where abortions are occurring, they're occurring in Latino and Black women as a segment or cohort. Whatever we can do to educate and to help those folks not put themselves in situations or be able to try to avoid situations where they need abortions is better in my book.
Thank you. Delegate Hope, we'll give you 30 seconds to
Yeah,
respond.
thanks, Arjun. Facts are funny things, aren't they? And they're stubborn too. I'm the chair of the House Courts of Justice Committee, which has the most bills of any committee in the General Assembly. And we make decisions on whether we can run bills or not. And one of the reasons is we can't fund it. And the other one is that for political reasons. We ran that bill last year. We have to expand our majority, Arjun, if we're going to do anything that we're talking about here today. We ran that bill and a Republican opposed it. Only one Republican opposed it. The governor vetoed that bill. We run the risk of Republicans pretending to be moderate are going to go home and campaign and vote for that bill. And we may not be able to expand our majority. And so anything that we care about here, we have to make some political decisions tough sometimes, but we have to expand our majority because what we're talking about here will never happen if we lose one seat. And so we make decisions for political reasons. And that was one decision that we made. Senator Favola knew it. All the stakeholders knew it. I'm sorry you didn't know it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
30 seconds.
If it was good enough for Senator Favola, I think it's good enough for me. And I think it's better for us to take the fight to the Republicans and make Governor Youngkin veto that bill than to play political games in Richmond because you're trying to do some political calculus.
You're messing with our majority, Arjun. That's why
I'm not messing with our majority. I'm making our majority stronger, sir.
You're unelectable.
Thank you. We'll move on. So the last question before we move into closing is on criminal justice. So in the last 8 years, 9 community members have died in the Arlington County Jail. Most of these community members were Black, and many were detained for nuisance crimes such as trespassing. How would you help our community address this systemic issue? So we'll start with Mr. Srikanth, and we'll give a minute and a half.
So in terms of the oversight that we want to see from our Department of Corrections here in Virginia, I think that anytime anyone is killed or dies in prison, there needs to be an incredible amount of investigation into those processes or into those goings on, because we don't send people to prison to die, right? Not necessarily. We don't send them there. We send them there because we want to rehabilitate them. We send them there because they may be a danger to society, but we don't send them there as a death sentence. So I think it's incredibly important that we have processes in place to be able to investigate these kinds of occurrences wherever they may occur. And the biggest thing for me is that at the Commonwealth level, when we are setting these standards, they have to be appropriately transparent to the public. I think a lot of what goes on in Richmond right now is really motivated by special interest groups and lobbies, and not a lot of what goes on is scrutable to the average public. So if we can make sure that in Richmond, when we're making these decisions, when we're deciding the frameworks for these processes, that we actually have a transparent process of going through. I know it's a short session and there's not a lot of time, but you have to be able to be in constant communication with the stakeholders.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein?
Yeah, I mean, I think when this happened, Senator Lopez and Favola actually went and met directly with the staff there here in Arlington, as I recall. The weird thing is, normally you would say, okay, let's bring this to our Attorney General and then, if necessary, bring it to our Department of Justice. Now, I'm not sure we have a Department of Justice, so that gives me pause. But when you're seeing a systemic situation where there are multiple deaths, you would hope that there would be an Uber body outside of Virginia that could come in and observe and actually give us a report that they think would make sense as far as what's going on, what happened, and what we should do about it. Here, I think we need to focus on getting the Attorney General involved. And we need more transparency onto exactly what happened. And those that are actually responsible need to be accountable, and not just suspension with or without pay, but gone. Sorry, one strike, you're out, period. If you're even affiliated with it, then we need to think about prosecuting as necessary.
Thanks, Delegate Holt.
I wrote the law for the Marcus Alert so that when law enforcement go to a situation where someone could be in crisis, they say they're trespassing, drunk in public, failure ID, those are the kinds of things that people get arrested for. They should not spend time in jail. They should they should be diverted directly to the Crisis Intervention Center. I want to give law enforcement the authority, the discretion to take people directly to the Crisis Intervention Center so they avoid jail. They shouldn't have to go there. But when someone does go to jail and someone is going to be there for a long time, and I think of someone like J. Michael Mitchell, who was arrested at the Chesterfield jail, sent to the jail. He was arrested at 7-Eleven for stealing a candy bar and a Coke. And he died while he was there in jail, waiting to be placed in a mental health unit. He needed mental health support. We can investigate these things. I have a bill that I put in to create an ombudsman for prisons. We need to expand that to jails. The local and regional jail is not sufficient enough to do these investigations and to make these reports public. I don't know for privacy reason if there's reason they're not making it public, but as chair of the courts committee, I would make sure that those are at least given to me so that we can decide if we need to take any legislative action. But certainly someone for trespassing, someone for a misdemeanor like that should not be spending time in jail. They should be getting the supports that they need, and they should be diverted.
Thank you so much. So now we'll give each candidate 2 minutes for closing statements. So during your statement, if you could please highlight what specific actions you'll commit to make Arlington more equitable for people of color, we'll appreciate that. So we'll start with Mr. Epstein.
Yeah, I'm very proud to be running for delegate. And, you know, at the end of the day, I believe I have what we need now, right? Which is I'm a common sense doer. I'm a practical problem solver, and I'm focused on action and transparency. That's what I have done for a living for 30 years and what I would bring to the table in this scenario. When I think about the 2 priorities, right, I go back to it, right? If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. My 2 priorities, education and the economy. If you can lift everybody up in both circumstances, we're going to be having less and less of these conversations, right? You know, when you think about the economy, we talked about increasing the minimum wage. Well, we need more businesses to come, diverse businesses to come to Arlington with high-paying jobs, right? We need to incentivize them to be here. We need those employees here in the community. We need to find ways to ensure from an education perspective that you think about Aspire, right? If you can get a child to reading level by 5th grade, right? Think about that. By 5th grade, regardless of where my time is, they have the exact same graduation rate as folks 400% above the poverty level. So if we can raise the standards, both at an economic level and an education level, again, we can be having less and less of these conversations across the board. A lot of these are because of the giant disparity that exists between minorities and non-minority populations. And I want to solve for them in 2 axes.
Thank you, Delegate Holt.
Thank you, Jan Marie. Thank you, Reverend Davis, for your leadership. Thank you, NAACP Arlington chapter. Thank you to Arjun and Sean for this discussion. And everyone who joined, thank you for being here. I want to just rattle off some things that we've done together on criminal justice reform. We've decriminalized marijuana. We've repealed suspending driver's license for failure to pay your fines. We've raised the felony threshold. We've enacted earned sentence credits. We've ended pretextual stops, which was my bill with Senator Lucas. We've enacted no-knock search warrants. We've banned chokeholds. We have Marcus Alert in just about every single county in Virginia. We created civilian review boards. We've created curriculum for standardizing police de-escalation and implicit bias training. I'm very proud that we're the first and only state in the South that has abolished the death penalty. I'm going to talk about some things that we're going to do together. And if you elect me to go back to Richmond, I'm the chair of the courts committee. I'm senior on public safety committee. We're going to enact a full repeal of the mandatory minimums. I'm going to expand the civilian review boards to include sheriff's departments. We're going to work together on this oversight issue so that we can have ombudsmen for jails as well. We're going to enact for cannabis retail to give Blacks opportunity, minority populations an opportunity to participate in the growing and manufacturing, the cultivating, and the selling. And we're going to pass the constitutional amendments, all three of them. But priority is going to be automatic restoration of funding. We're all going to be a priority. But I want to highlight automatic restoration of funding rights, reproductive freedom for all. And of course, locally here, I want to work with you to expand the police auditor, to allow the Arlington County Board to hire the police auditor, to ensure transparency and a line of accountability there. And of course, we're going to update our Arlington plan of government as well to include districts, to expand the board, and to allow a chair for 4 years. I want to thank NAACP for its partnership over the years. I hope you send me back to Richmond so that we continue to be a voice and work together on these issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Srikanth.
Thank you, NAACP Arlington branch. Thank you everyone for showing up, and thanks to the two gentlemen for joining me on this forum today. I want to give a little bit of about myself before I go into the policy. And 40 years ago, my parents immigrated to this country from India, and they came in search of the promise of the American dream. What they didn't know at that time was they would also be finding love. At Georgia Tech, these two young people who came from wildly different backgrounds fought against all odds. Moving to a new country, it's scary, right? There's so many new people, so many new processes you have to go through, but they fought through it all and they made me. I'm running for office because our communities are in crisis. Our federal workers, our communities of color, especially our immigrant communities, we are facing unprecedented threats from across the river. And really, as a Democrat, our party is losing ground with the voters that we need to win. Young people, working class people, people of color, they're moving away from our party. They realize that the status quo isn't working. As your delegate, I will fight for housing. I am the candidate that in Richmond will be fighting for housing for all. I'm going to fight against ridiculous processes that are going to stunt the construction of housing across our Commonwealth. I'm going to fight for environmental justice, to actually fight climate change in the most effective way that we can by building wind and solar. I'm going to fight for home rule for Arlington so that we don't need to have this debate every year about what we need to send our delegate to go do. The lack of control for our urban areas is a result of the Plantation South, and we need to do away with it and bring our local powers in line. These are the priorities that I will bring to Richmond, and I'm going to bring results. And that results is going to lift everyone in our community up. As I knock on thousands of doors throughout our district, on every street and in every precinct, it's clear that we are building a coalition of people who are tired of the status quo and are ready to fight back. That's why we're proud to be endorsed by former county board member Libby Garvey, because together we understand that the stakes in 2025 are too high to settle. So please join our campaign. You can learn more about me at arjunforvafirst.org, and I hope you'll help us in our fight to regain Virginia.
Thank you. Thank you all so much, Mr. Epstein, Delegate Hope, and Mr. Srikanth for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
So now I'll kick it back to President Davis, and I will share the links for each of the candidates for their campaign websites in the chat in case you want to read up about each of them more. But thank you all so much.
Thank you so very much as well. As we come to the close of this evening's meeting and powerful forum, I want to take a moment and offer our deep thanks. First, let's give a heartfelt round of appreciation to Jan Marie Pina and Amy Stitzel for their incredible leadership and coordination of tonight's political forum. Your preparation, professionalism, and passion created a space for meaningful dialogue and civic engagement, and we are all grateful. To all of our guest speakers and elected officials, thank you for being present and for sharing your vision with the community. Your willingness to engage in these conversations makes our democracy stronger. And to each of you, members, friends, neighbors, and advocates, thank you for showing up. Whether this is your first time joining us or your 100th, your presence tonight is a part of the progress that we're building together. We know that the road ahead is filled with both challenges and opportunities, but we remain hopeful because we know we are not walking it alone. As long as we remain united in purpose and grounded in justice, we will continue to make a lasting impact in Arlington and beyond. I encourage you to stay connected with the NAACP Arlington branch by becoming a member, getting involved in a committee, supporting our advocacy and scholarship efforts, and above all, by using your voice in the ballot box, in your community, and in your daily life. And so now I ask that you would join with me as we close in prayer. Holy God, we thank you for the gathering of minds, hearts, and voices tonight. Thank you for the wisdom shared, the questions asked, and the commitments renewed. As we leave this Zoom space, may we carry with us a spirit of boldness, compassion, and unity. Let our conversations not end here, but continue as action, truth, and as healing to the world around us. Bless every person and every family represented. Strengthen our resolve to stand for justice. Remind us that diversity is our strength and our love for community is our power. Guide our leaders with clarity, protect our youth with grace, uplift the weary, and give courage to the hopeful. In your name, amen. Thank you all for being here tonight. I hope you have a marvelous night. If you have any questions of the officers tonight, you are welcome to stay in the Zoom room. Otherwise, we hope you have a great evening.